Right, we welcome you to another episode of Learning Stories. This is a show where we profile a diverse set of learners from the 21st century. In each episode of this show, we interview a guest who has a story to share about how they acquired a set of skills and knowledge in a creative and innovative manner. In the process, we hope to uncover a new understanding of learning as conceptualized, imagined, and narrated by the guest on our show. The focus in this season of Learning Stories is to document and gather stories from urban India, young Indians doing amazing things in their own small contexts. And I think there's a lot we can learn from these stories. And I have one such story here today, um, Dwayne. So today, Dwayne Diaz is someone I met actually in a table tennis tournament that we both were playing, I think 10 or 12 years ago. But a little bit about Dwayne before we jump into the chat. Dwayne was born and brought up in Oman, but is now based in India. He moved to Mumbai, India, and completed a bachelor's in accounting and finance from HR College. His professional career converted him into a market research professional. He has worked with top brands like Nielsen and L'Oreal. Dwayne is also a type 1 diabetic. He actively tries to advocate for chronic conditions and is passionate about busting myths and spreading awareness on type 1 diabetes and other chronic conditions. Apart from that, he's also been active in the social entrepreneurship segment ever since he moved to Mumbai. And today he does pro bono consulting with an organization that works with social enterprises around India. So, Dwayne, thank you for giving us your time for this interview. I think there's a lot I want to chat about. Any starting thoughts before we jump into the conversation, Dwayne?
Thank you for inviting me and for bringing me on to the series. I think it's a great initiative that you have taken on, these past few months whenever you started this whole series as well. I just hope people keep watching and people learn from all of these talks and from my experiences as well. And I'm looking forward to the conversation and catching up with you as well after a good 10, 12 years or so.
Yeah, yeah, Dwayne, like I know both of us grew up in the Middle East. I grew up in Bahrain, and I know what that experience is like. And I know in your description you said that Oman is the hidden gem of the Middle East. So, can you tell me a little bit about what it was like growing up in Oman? I know you had a lot of other passions apart from, the things like cricket was something you really
Yeah,
played a lot growing up, table tennis and sports. So, what was it like growing up in Oman
uh,
for someone that doesn't know anything about Oman?
yeah. So I think one of my hidden gems always because whenever I've spoken to people and I keep asking me where I'm from, I keep saying I've been born and brought up in Muscat or Oman. Now, of course, yes, popularity of the country has gone up drastically, but earlier, whenever I used to say that I'm from Muscat or Oman, I would get a very puzzled look as a response. And then I have to say, Dubai, yeah, it's like 3 hours away from Dubai, but in a different country. So, this is why I was used to call it a hidden gem. And the reason why, another reason why I call it a hidden gem is because the government over there has really taken uh, painstaking efforts to conserve nature, beauty, traditions, their whole ecology that used to exist earlier as well. It's very, very different from how Mumbai is, for example, or from how Dubai is, where it's very cosmopolitan. It's very quick, it's very fast, there are a lot of man-made structures and all of that. Hence, I always call Oman, a hidden gem of sorts because if you go there and if someone loves nature, they definitely have to visit. They definitely have to visit this country simply because of how diverse the topography is, how it integrates with modern lifestyles that we keep leading, and just in terms of the beauty, I'm sure in Bahrain as well, you have these wadis and these sinkholes of sorts which fill up with water during the monsoons, and people can go up, and during summers they can go and like take a break, even if it's an hour and a half or 2 hours away from the city. So that's why I call it a hidden gem in terms of growing up. So there is a massive Indian population that uh, so you have the support system. You don't feel like you're alien to that country because a lot of these Gulf countries I think have something in similar have something uh, you know that is common across these countries is that there's a big expat population that comes and supports the economy of sorts. So same thing with respect to Oman. Again, there is a massive population from the subcontinent, not just India, from Pakistan, from Bangladesh. Uh, so that was one. So you felt like you were not someone who was alien to the country. And secondly is just the friendliness of the locals over there. Very friendly, very warm, would love to treat you as, as someone who is like royalty. They're very down to earth. If you visit their houses, they'll welcome you. They'll give you the best sort of food, the best sort of coffee, tea, etc. So the mixture of the expat population with the Omani locals was very cohesive, and that is something that I loved. Because it was the always promoted peace and harmony, contrary to what people think of the Gulf right now with respect to the Arab Spring and these other things that are happening in the other countries in the Middle East. Oman like that is very peaceful. They want to promote harmony. They also try and broker uh, peacemaking talks of sorts with other countries. So I had a great experience staying there. I lived there 18 years of my life, and uh, it was just I would say it was like a walk in a park. Anybody who goes there would love the country, would love the people, uh, and even like the Omani locals, they love Bollywood. They are big Shah Rukh Khan fans. Sometimes even I think they speak Hindi better than I do. So that's how entrenched they are with the Indian culture as well. But otherwise, just living there, it's if someone needs to retire, one is the place just to go. You can start something there and live a good life. So yeah.
Yeah. And like I feel like you covered a lot about your love for Oman in general, but I'm curious about the influence of, because all of us when we grow up, the two people that have the most influence on us would be our parents, right, or our guardians, because we see them on a day to day basis. So growing up, what were some things you learned from your parents that you still hold on to now? Yeah.
One thing is, I think the work ethics that my parents had, so both my parents used to work in Oman, uh, and their workplaces weren't close to home. They were about 40-minute drive of sorts. And over there, of course, the roads are great. So 40 minutes, if I have to translate it to Bombay standards, it would be around a good hour and a half, 2 hours or so. Uh, So, so that's how, I mean, just the overall work ethics that they used to follow.
Yeah.
And along with, trying to handle a house as well. So I have a brother, I have a brother, sorry. Uh, both of us, I mean, trying to make sure that both of us had the right the best sort of education in terms of sporting activities over there. We didn't get to miss a lot because my parents would always, try to hustle between work and home and try to drop us for our coaching classes or for our matches, etc. So I think what has stayed with me over the past years has just, making sure that you work hard. That's something that I've learned from them. And never, ever give your 50%, always give your 100% on whatever you want to do. Never be half-hearted about it, especially if you're passionate about things. So that's something that you learn from them.
Yeah, and I see you imbibing that value with your work in so many respects, Dwayne. And I know you loved cricket growing up, Dwayne, and I know you still watch it. I saw a recent post where you were at a World Cup match between India and New Zealand. So, like, in terms of, just your love for sports in general, like, what are some things you think sports has taught you about life that you still hold on to today?
Uh, And sports is always that never attitude. Be constantly. If you're really passionate about anything, whether it's work, sports, whether it's any hobby for that matter. Uh, Even if you lose at something, you just don't give up. You just keep practicing, just keep doing it until you succeed. You never know when the tides can turn. You never know when things can come in your favor. So uh, that's what sports has taught me. I mean, there have been multiple instances where I thought we'd lose a match or lose something. Uh, I just give you a recent instance apart from this cricket. I recently attended a half marathon at the beginning of the year, and for me that was a daunting task ever since I've been diagnosed with diabetes as well. Uh, but I mean, I did it. I thought I'd stop midway somewhere or the other. Before I actually started running, I thought I wouldn't be able to do it. I did it, and guess what? While I was running, I actually met a fellow type 1 diabetic. So I was wearing a T-shirt that spoke about like trying to spread awareness about type 1 diabetes or trying to strike a conscious conversation with someone. Someone noticed it. She tagged me, and we were actually running together for about 2 kilometers until I had to. I wanted to meet a certain target time, so I said I'll meet her at the finish line. But she just tapped my shoulder and she said, what, I'm type 1 diabetic too. And we had a short conversation of sorts, and we were like, motivating each other to keep going. So yeah, it's just if you set your mind to something, do not give up, whatever the circumstances are. Uh, you know, there will be people, or there may be instances where we may feel so demotivated, but it's about tiding over that particular period and just keep going, just keep crafting.
Yeah, I relate to that a lot, Dwayne. Like, like I think a friend told me in a match that sometimes you've got to play out the new ballers so that you have a
Yeah,
phase where you can. So sometimes in life, when it throws you a lot of challenges, you've just got to do your best and hopefully, ride the wave and then things turn out a little better, right? So I
absolutely.
think once you were done with Oman, Dwayne, like you moved to Mumbai and you pursued accounting and finance at a very popular college here in Mumbai. So what was that transition like for you, and why did you choose to study those subjects?
Mhm. So actually, my move to Mumbai was also primarily because I still wanted to pursue cricket. I had another, childhood friend of mine. Both of us were part of the school team in Muscat and also played like high level division cricket as well over there. And both of us said, what, let's move to Mumbai. We enrolled at the same college as well, and we thought that we could also play cricket at the same time and really hone our skills over there. And hopefully, we were dreaming big. We were kids at that time, so we were like, yeah, the sky's the limit. Let's shoot for the stars. So both of us moved to Mumbai. I had uh, an inclination towards accounting and finance because while I was in Muscat during 11th and 12th grade, I used to love accounts. So I thought that was something that I saw a future in, and hence, that's the reason why I chose accounting and finance. Uh, Mumbai, the reason why I chose Mumbai was one, yes, definitely cricket, and I also thought I needed to step away from my comfort zone. Um, because in the Gulf, you're pretty much pampered, for lack of a better word. You have everything at your fingertips. You have a car for everything to be dropped and picked up from. Uh, Everything. I mean, you're really in a cocoon of such a protected to a certain level. So I wanted to move to Mumbai to just get that street smartness as well, apart from pursuing cricket. And I thought it will help in just being a mentally tougher person of sense. And that's why I thought, this is a great move. Because I was at that time also considering moves to US, to the colleges over there, and even to UK. But I said I was always advised to do your undergrad in India itself, and then maybe for a master's or an MBA degree, you can do it in other countries. So yeah, that's what made me make my move to Mumbai. That's why I also chose accounting and finance. And in terms of transition, I was fortunate to transition well between Muscat and Mumbai. Yeah, yes, definitely Mumbai threw me at the deep end of a swimming pool, if I had to paraphrase it that way. Because especially train travel was a nightmare. My college was in the south of Mumbai and Churchgate, and I live in Goregaon. That's a good 35 kilometers away, and I had to use the train service over there. And I'm sure a lot of people know what a nightmare getting into a train is, especially during peak hours. That I think has been the biggest learning experience of, that I've had living in Bombay. Just watching people try to save every second by cramming into a crowded train, no sense of personal space, no doesn't give a damn about whether I've lost my chapel or whether I'm comfortably standing inside the train. I think that really taught me a lot about the spirit of Mumbai, and it just made me a tougher person as well, and learning to adjust and learning to just get into those trains and just seeing the runtime spirit of sorts of a normal biker. I think that's something that's been a key takeaway while I've been here as well.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And I completely relate to that because I had the same experience and I've lost a couple of chappals, getting onto the train as well. But I know when you were at college at HR, it's one of the colleges where you have a lot of extracurricular activities you can, engage in. And you were particularly passionate about social entrepreneurship. And there was a group called Enactus, and you did some work with them. So, can you tell me a little bit about your experience with that group
Sure.
and some of the projects you worked on?
Absolutely. So that's where my dream of being a cricketer also started fading away because I really got active with this group of enactors of sorts. Uh, Enactus stands for entrepreneurship, action, and us. It's like how we have ISEC as well. Enactus also tries to have different chapters with different colleges across the world. And what they try to teach you is whatever you learn in the classroom, can you put it into real life scenarios and try to create projects that uplift different communities? That's what they do in a nutshell. Uh, and what they do, and then every Enactus every Enactus chapter of college then competes at something called an Enactus national competition where they present their projects to different people of the CX committees of different companies. Or it's like so what an actress has done is on one hand they're trying to um, bridge the linkages between academia, and also on the other hand they've tried to tie up with a lot of these FMCG slash tech companies like Mahindra, Tata's, KPMG, Unilever, all of them, and try to get the who's who of these companies to come and judge these projects. So during the national competition, they also have these different sort of breakout sessions. They try, it becomes a great linkage between academia and the industry to come and talk about different projects, to network, to learn from each other, to learn about other projects that other colleges are doing across India. So yes, there is one a spirit of healthy competition because you are presenting your projects, you are answering questions about your projects, which are asked by the judges who are part of the industry. And then whoever wins that represents India at something called the Enactus World Cup. So that's how the structure is of sorts. Now, with respect to the projects that I participated in, that I was part of over there, the one that really drew me was when I just entered college and they were presenting something called Project Chirag, which was, in a nutshell, again, it was basically rural electrification using solar lights, right? But there's a bigger value chain that was attached to it where these solar lights were also being assembled by people who are deaf and mute. So you have another value system over there where you're trying to uplift people from people who are deaf and mute who normally don't get the best sort of job opportunities. We're giving them a sort of shot of life, by giving them employment. And on the other hand, you are also trying to bridge that gap of electricity for the rural folks. And it's unfortunate that the current definition, or rather at that time, from what I understood, the definition of electrification the definition of electrification is if there is one lamp post in a village. That's absurd to me because each household needs to have electricity. So that's where we came in, and that's where we tried to push for the adoption of these solar lights. where people will have to pay a certain amount of money so that this whole value chain is being cycled of sorts. But what we saw was that one, there was a reduction in kerosene usage and the kerosene lamps as well, because they emit uh, carbon dioxide and all of that, and all these other harmful chemicals are also there, and they are not able to sleep, and everyone has some sort of a respiratory issue. So these solar lights have helped them there, have helped people study as well. We actually saw an increase in the results of everyone's school examinations, because they now have time to study in the evening as well, where they would only study say till 4 or 5 p.m. when the sun is out. So they had more time to study. The solar lights were abundant. One was like a tube light or sort which was installed in the house. And then the second one was a portable lamp that you could also carry. So now the farmers could actually go and monitor their crops as well. In the evenings, make sure that there are no pests that are, corroding their crops of sorts. So there was a full value chain that we saw just by installing solar lights. There was such a massive increment in terms of value of life, or in terms of just the quality of life that each of them are leading. So that was one. Uh, Another one was Project Asha, which was mainly on the lines of urban empowerment in urban Bombay mainly, where we tried to teach them the skills of beauty so that they could become hairdressers and salon professionals in different salons, different leading salons in Bombay. And the ones that have been very close to my heart is Project Sarthi, as you mentioned earlier. That was again on English education using the techniques of phonetics. That is something that my batchmates and I had started together, where we got in content from another startup of sorts, where he made this self-learn curriculum using phonetics, and we really dumbed down how to learn English using that technique. And what we did was then we started conducting tuition classes for mothers in urban slums of Bombay. And what we thought was the best ones we can through proper test and learnings and all of those kinds of curriculums that we simulated at that time. We choose a few, and maybe those women can start their own tuition classes. So again, it's a means of income for them as well, and automatically kids can also learn English better, and therefore score better marks. And secondly, later, you know, job opportunities and all of that that they can therefore be open to. But the job market is therefore their notion that they can go in and try to pick, right? Because unfortunately in India, a lot of these jobs still require English, right, to be the primary mode of communication. So this then helps in terms of them also, I mean, at a later stage, of course, gain those jobs. What we also saw was a lot of these women, they are undergrads, okay, they have certain qualifications, but it's all done through Marathi or through Hindi. Not that they've learned English, some of them actually got absorbed into schools as well to teach English there. So, then we were trying to create different value systems or value chains where one, the kids are getting, the children in that community are getting better quality English education, and on the other hand, they're uplifting women in terms of earning their own sort of salary, in terms of getting jobs if they want to, or just learn English and be able to communicate and not feel left out. So yeah,
I mean, like three amazing projects, Dwayne. And I think, like, for a long time, I was exposed to this quite late. When young people think about business, they always think about technology and, starting like an app and then making that big. But I think social entrepreneurship is such an important, amazing opportunity where you are able to, create something valuable in terms of profits, but you're also able to benefit society. And I know you do a lot of work with Consultant for Humanity right now, but two questions I have, Dwayne. For someone that doesn't understand or knows nothing about social entrepreneurship, how is social entrepreneurship different from a regular sort of business or startup? And number two, maybe you can tell me a little bit about your work with Consultant for Humanity as well.
yeah. So how social entrepreneurship different from a normal company is that a company, so what is both of them offer profit? The end. to a certain level. Of course, in social entrepreneurship, those margins and all of that are not as high, but it's with the view of also having some sort of profit margin. Yes. How it differs versus traditional companies, whether it's FMCG or tech, is that you are trying to create value systems, one, and you are trying to uplift certain marginalized communities, or some communities that do not have the uh, the the blessings that we otherwise have, in terms of that, or the opportunities that we are exposed to. That is the main difference of sorts. We're trying to create these value systems. We're trying to give them a sort of a means of livelihood. So that's why social entrepreneurial companies are also very different from NGOs, because NGOs are constantly depending on a flow of income from donations, right? Here you're trying to build a sustainable business model. However, through that sustainable business model, you're trying to uplift communities, you're trying to give them a skill set that they can monetize on their end or on a salary through this company as well. So that's the main difference from what I have been part of and from what I have done through Concert for Humanity as well. Now, with respect to Concert for Humanity, it was something that was started by another friend of mine who I met through an actress in college. What she did was, she knew that a lot of people want to, contribute to society. They want to do something good, quote unquote good, uh, so that they can feel like they're contributing to society as well. So what she did was she got a lot of like-minded people together and assigned us different projects. You know, on one hand, she got all of us. So she asked if anybody was willing to. We had to fill a form, we had to talk about our skill sets, etc., etc. And on the other hand, she also floated another sort of form to emerging startups slash companies that are in the social entrepreneurial space, or that are in line with some of the UN Sustainable Development Goals as well, and asked if they need any help from whether it's financial modeling, whether it's creating a marketing plan, etc., etc. So basis those needs of the startups that were signed on, and along with the skill sets that all of us as individuals had, we would be paired with one of these startups to ideate to help them transform their current stage that they're in, to just assist them in certain things that they would require. And that was a good 4 month cycle of sorts, where we really, so like for example, the startup that I was with, and so I was assigned to that particular startup with a group of other individuals as well, which had diverse skill sets. So there was one guy who was core finance. There was me from a market research slash FMCG landscape slash marketing landscape. There was somebody who was from a design background. So again, you had a cross-functional team trying to help the startup as well from different angles. So it was a good 4 5 month project, and I'm happy to say that we were able to provide, a market segment for that particular startup. They were able to, in terms of financial modeling as well, in terms of trying to clean up their accounts, all of that. Was we played a sizable role in trying to assist them with all of these things. Now, Concert for Humanity then keeps running batches of sorts, and people can then enroll for those particular batches and then get signed up with one of these startups that also sign up for these services, and that's how it keeps going. So I've done it once with them, and now offhand, whenever I have the free time, I always I mean people reach out. There are these startups or sorts that reach out to me, and I just keep consulting with them whenever I can. And it's of course free of cost. I just do it because it's a passion for myself.
That's amazing, Dwayne. And I think it's such a powerful way to contribute to society, even if you're not, involved in a social enterprise on a day-to-day
Yeah,
basis, right? I think a lot of urban professionals have some very valuable skill sets that can help organizations across the country. So I will link Consult for Humanity's website in the show notes for anyone interested in, their work. And I think Dwayne talking about his experience there just shows us that it's a great opportunity. So once you were done with college, Dwayne, I know from accounting and finance, you made this transition to market research and being like a marketing professional in general. and now since 2016, you had a 6 to 7 year career in two very reputed organizations, Nielsen and L'Oreal India. So, can you tell me a little bit about your experience in both these organizations and what you do on a day-to-day basis as a market research professional?
So let me begin with immediately after college, I got placed with KPMG because again I finished. I mean, I was graduating with an accounts and finance background, so the Big Four came to campus recruitments, and I got placed with KPMG. I did not find my calling there. I was active in double audit at that time, and it's something that I did not enjoy. And I was there for a good 8 to 10 months or so, and I mean, yeah, Nielsen then was what came calling of sorts, and they were hiring graduates for their practices that they have in India. And I was always someone who was very interested in market research ever since, because of Enactus again. Because when uh, when for all our projects we would do a lot of primary research, we'd go to slums, we'd build a questionnaire, we ask them these questions and then assimilate the results. Right? So, a lot of this market research, affinity towards market research rather, was built through Enactus itself. And for me, numbers has always been something that interested me. And I knew that market research, it's trying to track, say, market share of different brands, trying to provide them a solution as to how they can improve their market share, etc. And that's what really piqued my interest in Nielsen, and that's where I decided to apply, and fortunately it worked. And I was there for about 4 years or so, almost 4 years. While in Nielsen, I was part of this team called Retail Measurement Services, which basically provides FMCG companies, those who work the FMCG companies. It provides them with market share data. It provides them with category sizes. Like, for example, if somebody from another country wants to understand, the size of, say, shampoos, uh, they go to Nielsen because Nielsen is the most credible source that way. Uh, so I was on different FMCG accounts. Large, 50% of the 4 years or 2 years, I was on the biggest FMCG player in India, which was Hindustan Unilever. I was working with them closely on foods and refreshments, and helping them understand their market shares, uh, other strategic initiatives as well, trying to figure out why they are losing, why they are gaining, who are they losing to, who are they gaining to, those kinds of aspects. And so for 2 years, I was in the BME account. Then for some time, I also worked on Ferrero and Nivea. So again, diverse parts of FMCG. One you had foods and refreshments, then you had personal care and beauty through Nivea, and then on Ferrero you had chocolates, which is a completely different ballgame in terms of because it's such an impulse category. There's a lot of out of home consumption through the small packs, those 10 rupee categories. So, uh, diverse categories, diverse business styles, because you have Unilever, which is like a juggernaut, very process driven, very has their foundations laid out. Right? You have Nivea, which is now trying to make it, at that time at least, was trying to really uh, penetrate into the market. Yes, they already have a lot of equity and all, they're just trying to further their footprint into the personal care space. And then you have Ferrero, which is mainly playing with premium chocolates. So how do you try to expand that? How do you take advantage of the gifting landscape in India? Because during Diwali, uh, during all these festivals, chocolates become such a big thing. Chocolate gifting becomes such a big segment. So trying to draw out a sort of a strategy to beat, say, for example, Mondelez, because they're the giants in the space. And with respect to gifting, we have so many Cadbury celebration kinds of configurations, right? So diverse problems, diverse analysis that we all had to do using numbers and using the data that we have. And that was my Nielsen stint. L'Oreal came knocking luckily. So L'Oreal was another account I worked for briefly. And then towards the end of my stint at Nielsen, L'Oreal was like, there is an opening here, similar sort of thing, into consumer insights. Would you want to be part of the team? I said, why not? Because I've been part of the agency side through Nielsen, so now it's time to try to transition to the client side and try to understand other aspects of market research along with the business implication as well. So from an agency like Nielsen, I can recommend things based on the data that I have. But again, there is a larger aspect to it, which is the business fundamentals as well. I mean, in terms of investments that they require, whether it's profitable, et cetera, et cetera. That's where my transition to L'Oreal has been a great learning curve as well, because I have the foundations of, say, the retail measurement space from my Nielsen days, uh, where I'm very well grounded on that front. But now I can learn other aspects of market research. I could learn other aspects of market research, which therefore makes me a very well-rounded market research professional. And then you overlay those learnings with the business implications, where I'm interacting with the sales team, I'm interacting with the marketing team, I'm interacting with supply chain, etc. So it's a nice cross-functional mix where you are bringing in different viewpoints along with the data as well. So I bring in certain things in terms of competition, in terms of what we can do, where is the market moving into. At the same time, the sales team can say, okay, but unfortunately, this particular product is not selling very well. I can't convince a distributor or whatever to stock my product because of so and so aspects, etc. So then we tie everything in together, and then it becomes a very holistic business plan that we can make. So I spent 2 years, 3 years in consumer insights in L'Oreal, and then I also wanted to branch out into other aspects of the business. And that's where now, last year, towards the beginning of last year, in Jan, Feb or so, 2023, I'm now part of this team called Revenue Growth Management, which is again trying to use a lot of the research stuff that I've imbibed over the years and now try to make it put it into strategy or so. So making sure our assortment or the products that we sell are profitable, making sure we have the right sort of strategy with respect to the channels that we play in. So, for example, in e-commerce, we have the right kinds of packs that we're playing with. We have the right kinds of promotions that we have, so that we're not diluting our gross margins. At the same time, remaining competitive versus the market. Again, similarly, in offline, we have the right kinds of products. Again, we have the right kind of promotions. And there is no cannibalization between the two. So there have been a lot of, for example, in makeup. I make a version of a stop for a lifestyle. Try on the product, but actually buy it from e-commerce because it's cheaper. Because e-commerce is always so discount heavy. So these are the kinds of things that now I am part of. We make sure that we have the right sort of mix so that we are reducing cannibalization so that we're profitable. We run the right kinds of promotions so that we are competitive with the market, but we're not also diluting our profitability to a large extent.
Yeah, I mean that's amazing. I think you work with so many diverse brands, Dwayne. Your experiences across a range of products, and I liked hearing about your journey from there's like this thread connecting you from Enactus in college to KPMG to Nielsen to L'Oreal. So it seems like a very interesting transition of how you constantly were looking for new opportunities, but also looking to grow as a professional. I'm just curious, Dwayne, because you worked like I think 8 or 9 years now since you graduated in this market research space. And right now, as a consumer myself, I notice so many different shifts in consumer psychology and behavior, with brands like Zepto and Blinkit coming, and then Amazon and Flipkart in the early 2010s. So, what are some things you've noticed in terms of patterns and trends, in terms of consumer behavior and psychology, since technology started becoming a bigger player? So, what are some things you noticed as a market research professional?
Uh, so with respect to e-commerce, for example, I'll just talk about the ballooning of how e-commerce has taken place in India, whether it's with the likes of Amazon, Flipkart, Nykaa, Myntra, Purple, Big Basket, Blinkit, etc. Uh, Flown with that. But before that, let me talk about consumer mindset. What I have seen, especially with millennials and Gen Z population now coming into the workforce, everybody wants efficacious product, so they want to make sure that the quality is great and it actually suits them. That's one. So we may sell something at a price which may be very cheap, but people are not going to buy it if it doesn't work. So they're not just people are not just looking for a discounted deal. Yes, of course they would love a great price, but they want to make sure. Yeah, they're looking at price, but they want to make sure that the quality is great and it actually works for them. That's one. Secondly, and the biggest change I would say in the past 7 to 8 years has been that they will pay an extra amount, and this is irrespective of whether it's in FMCG or even clothing for that matter. They are okay to pay a slight premium if the company is if the company shows tangible efforts and say uh, uplifting the environment, let's put it that way, or is very environment conscious, uses green chemicals. Like by green chemicals, and you can talk about environment friendly chemicals like no parabens, for example, or no nasties. They're okay to pay that premium. They find a sense of attachment to companies that are really invested in making sure that the world is sustainable. Or rather, they're okay to pay, or rather, they have a sense of attachment to companies that are ensuring sustainable development or sustainable business models. Right. So whether it's with respect to the environment or whether again it's just with respect to the CSR efforts or whether it's with respect to the production, maybe they're okay with it if the consumer knows that the company is doing the right thing and using the right sort of chemicals, using the right sort of formulations, so that it's not harmful for us when we keep using these products. Earlier, like okay, let's take an example of foods, right? Uh, we know biscuits, these health food things like Horlicks and Bonvita and all of that. We used to have them without understanding the nutritional information on these packs. And we never knew that the sugar content, for example, was so high. But now, because of social media and all of that, everyone is aware. So people are making conscious choices as well because of health. That they want to understand the lasting effects if they keep repeating the purchase of these products and keep consuming them. So that's what I've seen in terms of consumer shift. They're more aware, and that's completely due to the advent of social media. And how social media is making information very accessible. Right? Uh, they are Everyone's now always looking back at a package, looking at the ingredients. So they will definitely make conscious decisions that way in terms of the consumer journey and in terms of finally purchasing a product. The second is the whole environmental aspect of this. And that's where companies, if they're vocal about their things like this, and if consumers see that what they're doing is tangible, they will automatically uh, gain consumer loyalty. Let's put it that way, right? But that's in the end, that's what a company wants: consumer loyalty, so that you have repeat purchases. You are therefore it's about then trying to get new consumers because you're retaining a sizable set of your consumers. That's one bit in terms of the consumer landscape or rather the consumer mindset. In terms of e-commerce, now it's made everything accessible again. You know, everything on your fingertips. Things that it's lowered barriers to entry for a lot of these international companies, whether it's in tech, whether it is in beauty, whether it's in foods, etc. Because you're eliminating certain middlemen, and because otherwise, for example, taking the case of FMCG, if I have to make sure that I'm reaching the consumer, I have to go to different sort of kirana stores, make sure that my product is available over there. I'll have to go meet different retailers like a Big Bazaar or a D-Mart or go to Nature's Basket, etc. But now, if I just need a few of these e-com players, Amazon, Flipkart, Nykaa, depending on the products that you sell, I'm reaching such a big wide audience because everybody is so well connected. So e-commerce has lowered those barriers to entry for sure. And on the other hand, it's also given consumers a variety of choice. Because all you have to do is just keep scrolling.
Yeah.
You don't have to go to different stores to make sure. Say, for example, I want to compare a product. I'm buying a TV. I can see the ratings and reviews, everything on Amazon itself. different TVs. I don't have to go to, say, a Chroma and make sure that I may find that models over there, or I may not find it. It becomes a much more cumbersome, long, drawn-out process now because everything is there on e-commerce. You can read people's actual reviews, you can see the ratings, you can understand the features, and you can also through social media, you can also understand in-depth reviews from people, from whether it's YouTube or whether it's any of these websites that keep reviewing things, whichever ones you trust. Everything on your fingertips. And that's where e-commerce has really played a big part in terms of just democratizing access. You know, whether it's metros or whether it's even into like tier two, tier three cities, everybody now has access to Amazon. Everybody has access to Flipkart. What e-commerce websites have done, or what e-commerce platforms have done, is try to build the right sort of supply chain so that they can reach, these pin codes that otherwise were not reachable, or otherwise companies could not reach to because they had a massive amount of infrastructure that was required, in terms of making sure that your store is available, etc., etc. Now that elimination is there. In terms of, you don't need to have a brick and mortar store anymore. You just sign up with Amazon, make sure that they have your product, and that's it. They take care of logistics. Uh, so that's how e-commerce has really, made this, created this ecosystem of sorts that uh, it's a level playing field for everyone. So it's not just the Unilevers, for example, in the FMCG space that can win. Some brands like Mamaearth, these Indian independent companies like Mamaearth or say Wow or any of these other companies that are not about any of these things. Any of these companies also can automatically come in and make a dent
Sure.
into, say, for example, the market shares of the incumbent. So yeah, I think access one. Secondly, is breaking these whole barriers and making sure, and now therefore reducing that supply chain. In other words, for lack of a better term, maybe it was like this, and now it's automatically become much shorter.
Yeah.
So turnaround times also are low. Like,
Yeah, and it's a huge like opportunity for young entrepreneurs trying to break into the market because now the barriers have removed.
absolutely.
I think you can see a lot more Indian brands coming up and
Yes.
taking up market shares in these segments, right? And you are slowly seeing that transition. So it's interesting to see your insight as a market research professional, sharing those things. But Dwayne, like another big passion in your life is spreading awareness about chronic conditions. I'd love to know your story, Dwayne. About when you first found out that you were a type 1 diabetic and how you developed the ability to communicate about it to such large audiences with your work today. And you recently, presented in a panel at the Hospital Management's Asia conference in Bali. So I'd love to know everything about this journey from when you first found out to how you, worked on it, how you working on it today as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this is something that I'm very passionate about. So, I made ramble. Please tell me if, please cut me short if I keep making the same point. But so I've always been into sports, uh, whether it was cricket, whether it was football, whether it was athletics, track and field, etc. And in 2014 also, I suddenly started losing weight and stamina as well. I couldn't even run, the way I used to, of course. And I was losing weight dramatically, like in a very short span of time. I don't remember how much. I think probably 6, 7 kgs or so. It just went away, and I didn't realize why. And then there was this one instance where I almost collapsed. In the sense, almost fainted of sorts. Luckily, I was at home at that time. So, I mean, and my father was with me at the time when it happened. So it wasn't such an alarming sort of scenario. But my dad said, why don't you just go to the doctor and check it out? Because, you've lost weight. You've been having these issues recently. So why don't we just go and figure things? Just do a, normal checkup. And that's where I saw that my sugar levels were like 400 at that time. And the max that should be is 160, 180, depending on how old you are. And I was what? It was 2014. I was just turning 20 that year. Uh, and my sugar level shouldn't go 160. It was at 400, and I was like, okay. what does this mean? Because again, I didn't know anything about chronic conditions. For that matter, I didn't know anything about diabetes at that time. And the doctor said this could be potential. You may be diabetic. Please do the HbA1c test, which is basically trying to understand what your mean sugar levels were for the past 90 days, 3 months, 90 days. Um, I did that and I saw that my HbA1c was, I think, 14. Yeah, 14. I think you're supposed to have it around 5 to 6, if I'm not wrong. So everyone was around, and of course, I was trying to make uh, sense of everything because I was quite new to all this. My parents never had diabetes per se. So, and at that, this was back in 2014, so information about all of this also was not very widespread. So this was all new to me, and I was just trying to assimilate all of it in my head, and I was not understanding anything at that time. And I was immediately recommended by diabetologist slash endocrinologist, and they tried to explain certain things to me. And they said that I'm type 2 diabetic. Okay. So that is one. They thought that I was type 2. And I said, okay, fine. So now what needs to be done? So they told me about diet. They told me that I have to take certain medication. That time insulin was not in picture. So they said, diet and medication and just keep exercising as you've always been doing. I said, okay, fine. Very dependent my stride at that time. Of course, was very embarrassed about the situation. So I never really told a lot of people apart from close friends and my parents. And I was silently working on it. I was silently trying to do what I could in terms of my food, in terms of exercise, and in terms of just staying calm about the whole situation. Within 3 months, I saw an improvement, and my sugar levels are under control, and I kept having quarterly checkups of sorts, and I thought I was fine. At that time, I did not know that diabetes is something that's chronic. I thought it's reversible. I thought it's like having a fever and then you're fine, right? I thought it was like that. I did not know otherwise. And my doctors also weren't great at communicating it with me at that time. And so, yeah, for a while then, I thought I was fine. I didn't visit the doctor as frequently because I thought there was no requirement because these doctors are really busy and they don't really give you time. It's just 2 minutes sort of a consultation and you're out. So and I was constantly checking my sugar level through the glucose meters and sure that I was fine. So that's how I was living my life from like 2014 to 2017 or so. 3 years, I felt like I was fine. Things are okay. I thought I could eat whatever I wanted as well. I mean, my diet. I thought, I could have some leeway or sorts. But then fast forward to end of 2017, 2018. Again, I started losing weight, and this time it was sizable. I mean, even bigger than the drop in weight was even bigger than what it was in 2014. And I think it dropped to 40 kgs or so, 40, 42 kgs or so. Like I could feel my lips. I had no flesh across. At the same time, again, I had started. So in 2017, I was always very active with just like to exercise. And I used to do a lot of these 10K runs. And suddenly I couldn't even run 100 meters. Walking up a flight of stairs would leave me completely breathless. Uh, I would always pant for breath even if I was just walking a short, say 200 meters as well. And I would always use the washroom very frequently. But I know when that started happening, then I knew that something was wrong because it used to be a similar phenomenon back in 2014 as well. So, but I still thought, okay, it may be something else. But then once I started losing weight and I started losing my stamina was when I said something like, let's just go. That's when they ran a lot more tests and they said that, okay, that you were not type 2 diabetic, you're type 1 diabetic. You have been diagnosed with something called LADA, which is latent autoimmune diabetes in adults. So normally, diabetes, it normally happens when you're a child itself. So normally it's the kids are born with it and they have to be taken and given special care as well. Or maybe when you're 3 or 4 years old itself, you have this condition. It's not known as to how this happens. There is no sort of, clear cut scenario as to why someone would get this or why someone won't get it. It can happen to anybody. It's an autoimmune condition. By autoimmune, I'm talking about the body's own immunity system attacking the pancreas, thinking that the pancreas, the cells in the pancreas which secrete insulin are foreign bodies. So similar, like for example, if you have a sickness, you have the virus that comes in the immunity system normally attacks the virus, right? The bacteria or whatever. Here they have here in this scenario, the immunity system mistakenly attacks the beta cells in the pancreas, where those are the cells that create insulin actually. So that's how it happens, and there is currently nobody knows as to why that happens. Hence, it happens when you're a kid itself. A lot of type 1 diabetics are normally children, and they live with type 1 diabetes for the rest of their lives. Whereas type 2 diabetes is more lifestyle induced. It's because of your eating habits, it's because of your physical condition, those kinds of aspects, which can be controlled because of making lifestyle changes. So once someone is diagnosed, they can easily, or rather, they can control it in a much easier manner by eating right and by exercising. And the fluctuations in their sugar levels are not as much, it's not as volatile as a type 1 diabetic. And you can, try and correct that with medicine, like oral tablets, oral medication. Whereas for type 1 diabetes, you need insulin because your body is not creating the insulin that is required. In type 2 diabetes, your body is creating insulin, but the bloodstream is struggling to absorb that insulin because of your eating habits, right? Uh, but whereas in type 1 diabetes, you need to then inject insulin constantly before or after every meal, etc. So the management of type 1 diabetes is much more complicated versus type 2, from my understanding. Uh, and that's when I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, I thought I was distraught. Let's put it that way. And already, while I was a type 2 diabetic, also I mean, I wasn't vocal about it. Whenever someone would ask me, is there anything about it, I would just say, yeah, everything is fine, don't worry about it. You know, I never used to disclose my type 1 diabetic. I was very ashamed about it. I felt like I was alone in this whole journey. Also, parents were forced that. But I just felt, you know, it played a massive mental toll in my head. And now, fast forward to being diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, I already have a fear for needles. Uh, and secondly, this mentally it just took a massive toll on my mental health. Especially because I was someone who was into sports, right? And now I had to give up all of that. Uh, Even I had to take a good 1 month sabbatical from everything. Work, and the doctors just told me sit at home. Don't do anything. Your stress levels can impact your sugar levels. Your activities in general can impact your sugar levels. Apart from, of course, the eating habits that you have. Right now, don't even work out, don't do exercise. Just sit, take a break from everything that you've had. And of course, at that time, work has always been hectic because I was in Nielsen and we'd have long hours at office. But I used to enjoy it, with respect to work. So I literally had to take a 1 month break. It was like, just put, you just stop in your tracks when you're running at 100 miles an hour. Uh, and it played a massive role on my just overall mental makeup, where I would just be silent at home, just not talk much. I didn't know how to tackle this in general. Uh, but knowing that now, I have to tell people about it because type 2 diabetes, anything can happen anywhere, around anybody. So, you know, trying to make peace with that in my head and just in general accept my predicament of sorts was a task at that time. That's where while I was on that 1 month break, I mean, I had nothing to do, and I was advised not to do it. So of course I'd keep scrolling on Instagram or all of these social media platforms. And on Instagram, I finally through searching, to pass my time out then try and figure out a lot of these healthy recipes. So I used to just use hashtags on Instagram and search for these healthy recipes and then try something out. And that's where I realized that there is this. There are people who are advocating for diabetes. I would like to call them diabetic influencers for lack of a better term. But there are people who are publicly talking about it, who are, you know, uh, providing hacks, easy hacks that some people can imbibe in their lifestyle so as to manage diabetes better or manage their health condition better. And that really helped me in accepting all of that. Now knowing that I'm not alone, I'm not, even though they say, people diagnosed late and not having diabetes in adults are very minuscule. But I now know that, there are people there. There are people where there is a diabetic support system of sorts that is there globally that I can just reach to anytime I can, just reach through to them through a simple message on Instagram or Facebook or whatever. That's when I started exploring these sort of support systems in India as well. And that's when I knew that I wasn't alone, that it's okay to have a condition. It's okay to have a chronic health condition. That does not mean that life will stop. It's just that you have to figure out a way to accept it and live with it. That's all. And that's how, of course, it took me a while to accept it at that time. So I would say for me, like somewhere in 2020 was when I really got over this whole stigma about having a chronic condition and about living with it. Otherwise, before that, I only told a few friends, and otherwise, I just uh, say, for example, if I went for dinners, I'd compromise on my meal restrictions and just eat whatever everyone else was eating because I didn't want to tell them that, I have a health condition. Uh, and all those kinds of things, which actually then had a detrimental effect on me because then I had to manage my sugar levels on the go, right? Or rather, make sure that my sugar levels are not suddenly spiking up, for example. Uh, so yeah, 2020 was when I finally really, really deep down inside accepted this whole scenario and was like, you know what? Uh, I don't think hiding this situation of mine is going to help anybody. It's not going to help me. It's not going to help my friends in terms of understanding where I'm coming from. So let's be more vocal about it. Let's talk about it. Not just so that people understand my situation, but also because you never know how, like you said at the beginning of this podcast, you never know how people can learn from someone's experiences and someone's life story. So that's why I went. I just said, like, you know what, guys, I'm just going to put this on Instagram. Let there be repercussions if at all. If people are going to feel bad about me hiding it, it's okay. At least now people know. So that's why I just put out this Instagram post saying, this is what it is. This is the main difference about diabetes. And uh, I was very overwhelmed by the response I got from friends, from family members, especially like, I did tell my cousins about it. Some of my cousins are quite close to me. And they saw it and they were like, you know, don't worry about it. Yes, I can understand that it can be mentally exhausting. Uh, but don't worry about it. We're there for you whenever you need anything. And a lot of my friends as well showed that solidarity and have been with me on the journey. And I've been blessed to have such a support system in terms of friends, in terms of family members, in terms of mentors, my professional workspace as well. Everyone has been very supportive that way. And yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, this has been all of my whole experience with diabetes, and it's great that social media has really helped again democratize access to information. I'm coming back to the same point I made with respect to e-commerce and all of that. People are now aware automatically. Therefore, because people are aware, acceptance of these sorts of scenarios or these sorts of predicaments or accepting people into your community. When someone has a certain health condition, as when there has been a maximum movement that you know there is no stigma attached to it. People are willing to talk about it. Like for example, I will, I will just censor that helps me track my sugar levels. And people are very curious about it when they see it for the first time. When I go to office, not just my colleagues, but even like the staff over there in terms of cleaning staff, all of them ask me. And in my head, I'm like, okay, I'm so glad that I'm so inquisitive because I can talk about it openly. And they're like, oh, okay, you know what? And then they themselves, you know what, there is, even though of course maybe they're this affording such a thing as out of their budget, but they'd be like, I know somebody also who has diabetes, I should tell them about it and all of that. So it becomes a ripple effect, right? I'm sharing my experiences, people are understanding the situation, people are gaining some sort of knowledge, awareness is going up, and then they can then relate to it, or they know somebody who has a certain issue similar to what I have, maybe, and they can then talk about my experience, or maybe they can be in touch with them and therefore it just balloons, it just keeps creating this wave of sorts. And then everyone it just becomes a more inclusive environment. So yes, you have the best sort of medication in terms of insulin and whatever, etc. You have the best kind of technology in terms of say glucose monitors and insulin pumps, etc. But what really is the fundamental requirement, or what really helps, is making sure that there is psychological safety for people when they have been diagnosed with any sort of health condition, irrespective of diabetes or irrespective of anything else. Even if someone gets injured for that matter, showing that that person is still included in, say, a circle, a friend circle, or a community. Creative and inclusivity is, say, half the battle, right? When you are free up in your head, when you don't have to keep saying, oh, I have diabetes, I'm going to be judged, that fear of judgment, making sure that I have to adjust to, this is a cocktail party that I should not be making a fuss about things and all of that. It's not going to help anybody, you're not helping yourself. People are not going to understand what you're going through either. But when you are talking about it, and it's not because you're talking about it to make it sound like you're being an inconvenience. It's just that you have this, you can't do anything about it. You're automatically just intrinsically you are spreading information because it's a conversation starter.
Yeah.
For example, let's say what happened, I'm getting this. Okay, the other person will probably ask more questions or will be a little more inquisitive and ask certain things to get to understand the depth of the matter. And that's why you're just through conversation, you are exchanging so much knowledge with each other. And that then it becomes like, a ripple. And everyone else will also learn from it. Maybe someone else that person meets who has a similar sort of predicament will be like, oh, you know what, this guy also has a similar situation. This is how he's tackling it. Why don't you connect with him? That kind of thing. You're creating a community, you're creating an ecosystem that is now inclusive, that is armed with facts, that is armed with information, so that your, you yourself can also, like for example, now somebody keeps asking me about what I do for, with respect to workouts and all that. Now that person is, that friend of mine is now also imbibing certain things that I do. So you're getting, you're keeping yourself healthier as well, you know. So it's just creating community. I mean, at the end, they're all social beings. And when there is a united community, automatically they sound very like as I'm giving a TED talk, but they, they strength in numbers, simple. You know, when all of us are united together, we can all do wonders together as well. And we never know how you're helping someone by just talking about, talking about your whole life story or talking about your predicament, you know. So that's where I come from, and that's where this whole thing of, talking at the hospital management Asia conference in Bali came through. I did an advertisement, I did a client testimony with Abbott, because I keep using their glucose monitor, their continuous glucose monitors. Uh, that's how then, because that client testimonial was received very well by the Abbott team and people who have watched it. They extended an invite for me to talk at this conference in Bali to give a patient slash end user perspective on how uh, I'm managing my situation and how digital health and digital means of communication have helped me uh, really manage type 1 diabetes, whether it's technology, whether it's community, whether it's mobile applications, all of that. So Albert created or rather assembled this panel of sorts to talk about how digital health is making use in medical care, where they invited someone from the hospital industry, an IT director over there, to talk about how their digital systems are now improving patient care. Someone from the pathology space, where they are putting in advanced digital tools to help them detect false negatives, false positives, with respect to your blood reports. And then finally, they asked me to talk about an end user perspective, uh, how how my journey has been pre and post the digital advent, let's put it that way, and how I was so afraid earlier, but now how I am now openly talking about things, not afraid of what people will tell me because of the overall, what I call it, the digital ecosystem, where it's mainly about medical tech, which is with respect to the continuous glucose monitor. You also have a plethora of mobile applications now to track your fitness goals, to track health, to track your diets, etc. Thirdly, and the most important part is social media and the community. Because when you are mentally free from all these battles that you are fighting in your head, especially when you are, diagnosed with a chronic disorder, you are automatically at another level with respect to your recovery because your head is free. You can focus on other things. You have support, and you're because you're not as pessimistic as you would otherwise be. So just the mental makeup, and people don't talk about it enough, especially when you go to a doctor. They'll be more about medication and all of that. But this whole mental aspect automatically, it's like a catalyst. It really fastens that process of, recovery, that road to recovery and road to better health. Let's put it that. And that's why I love talking about this bit because I feel like I'm contributing in some way in terms of awareness, in terms of information, and I'm just trying to build. In my head, I'm like, okay, this is helping build a more inclusive community of sorts.
Yeah, that's amazing, Dwayne. Like it's so inspiring to hear you talk about it, but living with it on a day-to-day basis is a whole different thing. And I think building a community around this is I think the more positive action that you are taking. But I feel like some of the things you mentioned about how technology is empowering in a way, where you are using this Abbott tool that allows you to that gives you that data on a day-to-day basis, or when you got access to social media and other diabetic influencers who are doing such positive work. It's a very different story of technology that you're hearing, because these days you hear such negative stories of how you hear like technology throwing media and stuff on you that may not always be positive. So I think it's a really positive way of how you've used technology to really spread awareness on this. And for someone that has the condition, Dwayne, like what are some things you do on a day-to-day basis to ensure you maintain your levels on using the tools that you have?
Right. So one thing is definitely because of the Abbott tool that I have it's called the Abbott Freestyle Lever, and it's a continuous glucose monitor. So how it works differently versus other glucometers is the glucose monitors, you prick your finger and then you check your sugar levels at that moment in time, and that gives you a sugar reading at that point in time itself, right? Well, this is attached to my arm, and it'll give me minute by minute readings continuously on my phone. I just have to use my phone's NFC scanner. I scan it, and then automatically through the app, it tells me my sugar readings. So it gives me trends, right? Earlier, through the glucometer, the traditional ones that we all have, you just prick your finger, you only understand the sugar readings at that. time. With type 1 diabetes, a lot of things can affect your sugar levels. It's not just food. It's your sleep patterns, it's the quality of sleep, it's the stress levels that you're under. It is your overall schedule for that particular day, like exercise, etc. There have been times, for example, before when I just started using this with the habit 2 weeks, my sugar levels will stay stable. However, when I wake up, suddenly my sugar levels start shooting up without me eating anything or any of that. You know, I did not know any of this until I started using this. So they call it a dawn effect. But I did not uncover these trends until I started using the tool, until I started using the sensor. So what I do on a day-to-day basis is definitely keep tracking. You know, the beauty lies in data in the end, and I may be data savvy or I may be internet savvy, etc. But in the end, for people, for the people watching this, we need to understand certain data points, and if we keep tracking it, especially if you have a chronic health condition, your life is definitely going to improve tenfold because you are then going to be aware of what your health parameters are, etc., etc. So one is definitely what I would recommend. What I would say is on a day-to-day basis for me, tracking is of utmost importance. Once I know that, then everything else falls into place. I understand how much insulin I have to take. I understand what I can eat on that particular day. Because for me, at least with respect to me and living with the condition, it's mainly about what I eat, my stress levels, how I'm working that particular day, and the insulin dosage I have to keep taking before and after every need to correct any sort of sugar fluctuations. Because I can't go low with my sugar levels. If my sugar levels crash, I can't function. If my sugar levels go up again, that's a big problem for me. I start getting headaches. I can't, my focus deteriorates, etc. So, in a nutshell, again, tracking, based on tracking, adjusting my insulin dosage, and adjusting my schedule for that particular day. These are the three things that I do on a daily basis.
That's amazing, Dwayne. Like in today's conversation, I've learned so much about, your years growing up in Oman, and then, social entrepreneurship, market research, and then something you're really passionate about is spreading awareness about chronic conditions. And I feel like I have so many more questions, I want to ask you. But for the listeners that want to know more, is it okay if I share your LinkedIn and
Absolutely.
Instagram in the show notes below?
Yes, absolutely. Please do. I'll be very happy to field any questions, any queries whatsoever. I'm always reachable through these platforms, and I'll be very happy to address anything.
That's amazing. And on that note, we sign off on another episode of Learning Stories. Do tune in for more such episodes and amazing stories from young people in India, changing the country in small little ways. Thank you again. And this is Abhishek Shetty signing off from this episode of Learning Stories.
Thank you, Abhishek. Thank you for the opportunity. It's great talking to you. We shall catch up again soon.